Welcome to REM Reward, the podcast that explores the secrets of sleep and psychology. I'm your host, Ryan, and in each episode, we'll dive deep into the world of sleep and other topics such as mental well-being and personal growth. If you want to unlock your full potential and receive the rewards that come with understanding the power of sleep, you're in the right place. To discover more tips and insights on improving your sleep and overall well-being, visit our website and explore our other episodes at remreward.org. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the REM Reward Podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, Dominic de Almeida. Dominic is a graduate student at California Baptist University, where he's pursuing a master's degree in kinesiology while continuing to excel as a soccer player. Previously, he earned his bachelor's degree in psychology from Georgetown University, where he was a dedicated student athlete, playing as a defender for the Georgetown Hoyas men's soccer team. Dominic's journey in soccer includes participation in representing and captaining the United States U14 to U16 national team. His dedication to both academics and athletics was recognized with the prestigious Luis Mendez Award, given to a player whose commitment to the team is unparalleled. In addition to his academic and athletic pursuits, Dominic is a certified personal trainer and holds several certifications, including a National F coaching license from the U.S. Soccer Federation. His expertise extends beyond the field as he applies his knowledge in kinesiology and psychology to enhance athletic performance and overall well-being. Today we'll be diving into how Dominic balances his rigorous schedule, the critical role of sleep in athletic and academic performance, and the valuable insights he's gained from his studies in psychology and kinesiology. Whether you're an athlete, a student, or just someone interested in the science of sleep and performance, this conversation is sure to offer some fascinating perspectives. All right, cool. So yeah, you have a background in psychology and are studying kinesiology and are a student athlete. So tell us how you were motivated to study psychology and then kinesiology, and what exactly is kinesiology?
Yeah, so basically just start out with the fact that I played soccer for my whole life and just have a really deep love and passion for understanding and learning about our bodies and how we can optimize our performance, whether that's being a friend or on the field or on the court or whatever that means to you, just optimizing your life and how you feel. So I studied psychology, as you mentioned, for my undergraduate degree in DC, and then we'll be pursuing my master's of science of kinesiology, which basically is just the study of movement at its most simplest form. And I'm excited to do so, and we'll be doing that in about 2 weeks.
Very cool. Yeah, and as a student athlete, how has your sleep influenced your performance both on and off the field?
Yeah, so first and foremost, off the field, sleep is like one of the things that I kind of dialed into first. I would say beginning my sophomore year of high school, I really started to love learning about it and actually have a 30-page doc on mostly sleep and recovery that I kind of drafted up in high school. But yeah, just absolutely started loving it in high school and started dialing it in, researching and investigating the things that would optimize it. And that was at the time for my performance on the field as a soccer player, but also helped me obviously in life with friends, family, and just showing up in those ways. And then yeah, on the field, of course, sleep is I mean, I've heard it many times from some of the top sources, but really just the best natural performing enhancing drug that there is for not only your body but also your brain, um, from a psychological standpoint as well. So yeah, I would say that there's nothing more foundational to our health, and that being mental, physical, spiritual, and performance in all aspects of health, than sleep. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And can you share any personal strategies or experiences you've used to manage your sleep schedule while balancing academics and sports?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a battle. And it's never perfect. I think that anyone that is perfect about sleep, that's great. But I think that there comes to a point where you almost want to, because you want to be able to enjoy life, whether that's socially or just whatever it is. But I think that there is very much a balance with um, being able to you know find out what works for you as well as hone in on your sleep. So in regards to personal strategies for myself, there are a few things for sure, but bringing it down to a practical level, I think that something as simple as getting some curtains that make your room or blinds that make your room like super dark is very key, um, because obviously darkness is key in aiding in not only falling asleep but staying asleep. Um, then there's also on the topic of light, there's also obviously clocks and little maybe flashing stuff from an AC unit or something like that, which you would kind of want to minimize, because if you do wake up, you would want to not have that affect you. Um, and then obviously temperature is a big one as well. Temperature, our bodies drop by 1 degree Celsius when we are sleeping. So we want to I shoot for around mid 60s, maybe high 60s for temperature. But that's obviously for folks who can, change that. And yeah, so temperature would be a very big one. And then, there are many tools that, if you'd like, we can get more into, but that, you kind of do the morning of that same day, you know, things that really can kind of improve that marker of when you're going to be wanting to sleep and
Yeah.
how well you sleep, and that includes a range of supplements, behavior, I guess things to change, and we can get into that if you'd like. I just don't know,
Yeah,
what
for
you want to
sure.
get
If you
into.
want to expand on that, that'd be great. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So, I think first and foremost, it would be kind of allowing your body in the morning, telling there's uh there's something in your brain called the SCN. It's the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it's basically nerd speak for um, and I'm hoping I'm getting this right, but it's a thing in your brain that tells the rest of your body that it's either time to be awake or time to sleep. And scientists have, found this. And one of the things that I try to do every morning is ideally within the first 20 or so minutes, but uh, most definitely within the first hour of waking, I try to get outside, whether it's you know sunny or overcast, whatever it is, um, for about 10 minutes, and that's without sunglasses on, um, and I'm just kind of outside, allowing ideally in direct sunlight, not staring at the sun, but yeah, ideally just telling my brain that it's time to wake up, and it's actually activating a rise in cortisol, which is a good thing during the morning. And then that's time that sets up later for yourself to be tired when you're supposed to be.
Right.
And that's really just your circadian rhythm, which has an effect on your whole body. And even on overcast days, you want to stay outside for even longer, even though it might not seem like it, but that's also very important to do. And then on the other side of the evening, when the sun is going down, and sorry, I forgot to mention that window is about 5 to 9, so a.m. So it's about, yeah, I would say it's about 5 to 9. So when the sun comes up until about 9 a.m., obviously post 9 a.m., it's, the sun's not bad for you and it's a good thing.
Right.
It's probably just not going to have an effect on your circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
And then in the evening, yeah, you could get outside in the evening, have that light, which is very different at that time around sunset, and then like the, hour or so after that, maybe. And that will kind of aid in melatonin production, which is basically your body saying that it's time to sleep. And what makes you feel tired is what makes you feel tired. Excuse me. Um, so those are the things surrounding light, or sunlight. And then also you don't want to be eating too much. Of course, if you have to, you want to replenish, and eat, of course. But ideally, I would say 3 hours, 2 hours, at the least, eating a meal. But then again, I wouldn't stress about, if you're going to have a tiny healthy snack, um, you know, 2 hours out, I wouldn't stress about that.
Yeah.
As well as hydrating too late into, the hours of, getting up to sleep time, can wake you up during the middle of the night, have you use the restroom then, which isn't optimal. But of course, you want to be hydrating as well, ideally within the, first fewer hours of the day, and kind of tapering it off in the middle of the day as well, but tapering it off towards that back end, um, ideally. And then the other thing would be, uh, blue light, and kind of getting on your phone and TV and computer. I would say ideally with not to be on your phone about an hour before bed. Um, and that's more so of just stimulating the brain. So I would say social media is worse than
Hmm.
watching like a larger film on a TV that's, maybe dimmed down, or you're wearing maybe red blue light blocking glasses, but, um, the research on that isn't too strong. But yeah, ideally you're just not, just not on the screens at all. And then probably around an hour, maybe 90 minutes or so as well. I like to. I also should say that this is all stuff that I like to adhere by. And of course, you should definitely talk to your doctor, talk to qualified sleep scientists that, know what they're doing, more so than me. And, yeah, just, really sleep is very individualized.
For
So
sure.
yeah, definitely, do your own research, investigate, and talk to a doctor if you see fit. So this is really all just stuff that I like to adhere by. But yeah, the last thing I would say is the dimming of the lights surrounding the nighttime. It would, I find it beneficial. Ideally around 90 minutes, but definitely within like the last 30 minutes, if possible, to wind down and, maybe put on a candle, because that doesn't seem to have an effect on circadian rhythms. And change those brighter overhead lights to lower, dimmer, warmer colors, such as like a bright, a lower tone like orange, or maybe even a red. I
Right.
find beneficial. Um, and then obviously there are bigger things that affect sleep, such as exercise timing, other things that can have profound effects that kind of are, very highly individualized. But those are some things that I like to think about, in regard to, sleep, and optimizing the time around it.
Right. Thank you so much for that. That was a lot of information I think a lot of listeners will find really useful. And then I guess going along with that, like what are some evidence-based sleep practices that you believe are crucial for maintaining peak performance in both academics and athletics? And have you encountered like any particular sleep-related myths or misconceptions that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I just touched on a good amount, in regard to the evidence-based practices. Most of those are And like I said, sleep is very, uh, individual thing. But yeah, I would say that getting light in the eyes, um, and trying to time your meals and your exercise, especially the higher intensity exercise, wouldn't be optimal right before bed. Maybe like a steady state, lower intensity would be fine. But of course, everyone's super different and everyone
Yeah.
responds differently. There's also supplements that could help. Um, Oftentimes, if I feel that I need it, I'll take magnesium threonate. But yeah, everyone's extremely different. But in regard to, sorry, your second part of that question.
Yeah. So like any maybe sleep related myths or misconceptions that you like to share?
Yeah, I would say sleep related myths.
Or maybe there's none.
Uh,
Maybe. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure. I think that I've I've spent a little bit kind of thinking about and investigating, researching a little bit sleep. Um, so my perception of sleep is a little bit different.
Right.
So I'm not sure if there are any sleep myths that I can think of off the top of my head
Yeah.
that kind of the general person might think of. But yeah, I mean, I would say that, if you do have a true like insomnia or sleep apnea or kind of real sleep condition, it would obviously be very beneficial to see a doctor and get, highly specific
Yeah.
information on that. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that I find it beneficial because I seem to be more of a mouth breather during sleep um, than I had would have thought. So I put a single like small piece of tape that still allows me to breathe out of my mouth if need be. Um, but yeah, I just find it better um, to sleep with some tape in my mouth so that way I can nasal breathe.
Hmm.
And have found that at least anecdotally that it kind of does allow me to feel a little bit better. But of course, yeah, everyone's different.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, and then I guess going back to athletics, like how did you or how do you manage sleep when, traveling for games or competitions, and what tips have you found effective for adjusting to like different time zones?
Yeah, the adjusting to different time zones is a big one. Actually going to be going on a trip tomorrow, and we'll be doing that. Just a 3 hour time zone adjustment. But yeah, that's huge. Think that the biggest thing would be trying to optimize days before and when you arrive in the location that you'll be staying in. And then obviously it depends on how long you'll be staying there.
Hmm.
But yeah, so for example, my the trip that I'll be taking, if tomorrow, I'll be staying there for 6 days. It's going from West Coast to East Coast, so I'm going ahead in time. So I'm just going to be trying to optimize I'll try to be going to bed earlier and waking up earlier
Hmm.
now tonight and started it last night. To then be able to kind of shift, and also I'll try to adjust my meal timing
Right.
and light timing. But yeah, I think that it's also important to focus on when you get there, really, getting sunlight in the eyes. Uh, and usually, I think the general rule of thumb that I believe I've heard is that however many hours, so I'll be going 3 hours ahead. That's about how many days that it takes, give or take, um, for your body to get adjusted.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the sunlight timing would be key, meal timing, and then the timing of your exercise. I think those three things are the biggest things that I like to focus on when experiencing jet lag and time change. But in regard to practices that I like to do for that, I have like a very cheap like a silk eye mask. So I'll use that on planes. And really, if I'm sleeping in a spot that's a little bit has more light coming in than I would have liked, as well as I personally don't like melatonin and don't think that it's a good thing for someone to be taking, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, Generally, just because they want to fall asleep. Um, but I think with jet lag, it is okay to take, if the situation permits it. But yeah, in general, I'm not a big fan. Um, but yeah, I think timing is the biggest thing with the the transition of time change, from one zone to another. And really, I think it would be sunlight, exercise, and meal timing, that can have the biggest shift and kind of change that the most.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, and then I guess I was just curious as well, like, have you seen there's a relationship between like sleep and like mental and psychological resilience in athletes? Like, I guess if they don't get enough sleep, maybe it's worse or yeah, going along with that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that sleep, a lot of people like to think, or at least I believe a lot of people like to think that sleep is really good for our bodies, and our muscles and kind of repair and stuff like that. And it really is, of course. But I think oftentimes, at least maybe I forget that sleep is one of the most beneficial things that we can do to basically give ourselves free therapy. Whether you're going through emotional distress or psychological trauma, shorter trauma. That word trauma has some like baggage to it, but of course, um, you know, things that are going on in life. I guess stress would be a good word. Um, if you're honing in on your sleep and trying to really dial that in, I think that it can have profound effects on just how you're feeling, when you wake up. Um, yeah, so I mean, it can't be overstated how important sleep is for your brain. Like I said, I think of it as like almost like a free therapy.
Mhm.
But of course, many people go through things that sleep can't heal.
Right.
Such things as clinical depression, clinical anxiety, which you would definitely need to go see a therapist and a licensed professional for. And who knows, maybe they will prescribe and kind of look at your sleep, if it's not, if you're not getting good sleep. But that, chicken and the egg there, who knows what's causing what.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, all that being said, sleep is, I think, profound for, both body and brain.
Yeah. And then,
Um,
yeah, go for
Sorry,
it.
I was just going to say, in regards to your question about how it affects athletes, I think that, whether you have a bad game or maybe even a good game and you're kind of riding that high, of, maybe having a good game, or maybe just feeling down because you didn't have a good game. Um, Whatever it is, I think that like a good night's sleep could potentially, um, quote unquote, solve that. But then again, there's it's so individualized that,
Yeah,
um, it's hard to kind of pinpoint one thing that would benefit.
for sure. Yeah. And then going along like the mental note, you also like really emphasize having a growth mindset. Can you just like elaborate on what a growth mindset entails and maybe its benefits?
Yeah, sure. So for me, a growth mindset basically encompasses the fact that, you one's level um, of of how can I put this? One's level of like learning
Mhm.
isn't stagnant. So if I'm bad at painting, it's because I haven't practiced it. And even though I probably am not the greatest at painting or drawing, that's because I haven't, done it enough uh, to grow at it and learn at it, and learn it. So basically, it's whether in sport or art or music, whatever it is, it's putting your mind to the test, and being able to essentially just learn and grow, and being willing to do so. Whether Because the opposite of growth mindset is fixed mindset, and that basically, and in my opinion, entails that you can't get better at something. And so growth mindset would be the opposite, thinking that you can get better at something and you can learn and grow, and it's basically just that process. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And then also I had a question. So other than like time zone differences, I was curious like if you think there are other more like common sleep challenges faced by student athletes, and if there are, how might they overcome them?
Challenges faced by student athletes. Yeah, for sure. In regard to sleep or just challenges in general?
Yeah, I think specifically sleep or maybe other challenges you might want to give advice for if you're up for that.
Yeah, so with sleep challenges, I think that one would be just the social aspect. Of course, whether you're a student athlete in middle, high school, college, um, or even whatever it is in life, and you're studying, being a student athlete, um, there are obviously challenges to balance being a person as well. And I think that's very important, because obviously, you don't want to fully neglect relationships. Connecting with others is so important, especially nowadays. I think it's super easy to um, kind of just go home after a workout or soccer practice or whatever your sport is, and just scroll on your phone.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to connect with others socially, especially in times of, whether it be your freshman year and you're really trying to connect and meet people. Yeah, so I would say that, that your digital habits could also kind of come into and have an effect on your social life with it, which would then have an effect on your sleep. But of course, on the other end of the spectrum, if you're staying up every single night until 4 a.m., you're not going to perform at nearly your best. So um, it's such a balance. And I think that finding things that work for you is key. But also, realizing that sleep is super profound. And yeah, I think it's highly individualized. So, whether that means connecting with people before a game or maybe on an off day or something like that, as opposed to at 3 a.m. in the morning. Those that would probably be in one's best interest. Um, and then another sleep challenge outside of time zones and kind of changing time zones. I think that it could be tough if you're on the road a lot, sleeping in different environments. That's why I think
Right.
things like kind of maybe a sleep mask or um, maybe a supplement, or yeah, just meal timing. But having little things, maybe it's a sleep routine. Maybe it's a shower before bed. Maybe it's something that you always do before you sleep, and kind of getting into that headspace of, okay, it's time to sleep, can really help, and be a mover of, okay, I'm on the road, I'm in a hotel. This is in a sleep environment that I'm used to. Maybe it's even bring your own pillow, bring your own pillowcase, little things like that that allow yourself to feel comfortable
Yeah.
in the bed that you'll be sleeping in. Because obviously, being a student athlete, there are times when you have to travel, um, and that doesn't mean that the next day you can't, because you really need to be. You need to wake up and be your best, and that doesn't mean that you can't be. Oftentimes, sometimes even wherever you're staying, hotel maybe, those beds are even better than dorm beds, or if you're a high school student athlete, um, you know, maybe if you're staying in a hotel on on a weekend tournament or something like that, maybe that could be beneficial and kind of just aiding in your sleep potentially, just from a comfortability standpoint. But yeah, like I said, it's highly individualized. I think a lot of people that have sleep challenges, um, if they were to take some of the things that we talked about today, of course, with doing their own research and investigating for themselves, um, it could truly benefit their sleep and their performance. Um, but yeah, I mean, being a student athlete and sleeping well is not an easy thing by any means. There are a lot of social pressures, a lot of things that you know would maybe make you stay up um, or want to stay up at night. But yeah, I mean it's entirely up to you to kind of take your sleep by the reins and into your own hands, and if possible, change it for the better.
For sure. Yeah, I completely agree. And then also, what role do you think, I guess, technology and sleep tracking tools play in optimizing sleep for athletes? And have you used any tools yourself?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think sleep tracking has come a long way. There are many devices out there that can be a um, good way to assess, but I think that if you're over caring about your sleep score, that could become a real problem. So that's super important to not over obsess. And my advice to someone that thinks that they may be too obsessed with their sleep score would be just take a little break.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that there are a lot of benefits to using something like an Aura Ring or a Whoop or um, an Apple Watch. Um,
Right.
but of course, those are um, kind of supplementary. And you wouldn't want to base your sleep or anything like that solely based on those, and at least not yet, because obviously the technology is getting much better as time goes on. But at least not yet. I wouldn't kind of want to, at least myself, so, you know, just think about my sleep score and base everything based on that.
Right.
I found some use in the sleep tracker, but I would say that it's um, yeah, I can't really fully put like 100% trust in that. Um, but yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I think it's all about just like how you feel yourself. And then looking ahead, like what aspects of sleep research, like growth mindset or kinesiology, are you most excited about exploring in your future studies or career?
Yeah, so um, something that something that I've really enjoyed kind of researching and investigating myself in regard to sleep would be the idea and the time around sleep. So really figuring out what the best time to put your phone away is, and is it okay to have some popcorn an hour before bed, or if I'm gonna have a meal and it's late night, but I have to sleep 30 minutes after, is it better to prioritize protein, carbs, fats? Would a shake be better? Things like that, kind of that like almost nitpicky type,
Right.
detail oriented details. But I think that there's a lot that I'm really excited to kind of dive into and learn about. Something that I think is a deep belief of mine is that our bodies are extraordinary. We have the ability to adapt and perform and kind of just change our bodies more than we can imagine. And I think that we're capable of so much, and that's why I truly love learning about our bodies. Because there's so many things to learn. I look at my bookmark list on my computer, articles that I want to read, and it's just like podcasts that I want to listen to, books, all of that. It's just like endless. And
Right.
um, I think that can get kind of overwhelming for some people. And for me, it can at times, but I think, it's all about balance, moderation. About whether that's balancing your social life with your sleep or your sleep with exercise, because, obviously if you're exercising too much, maybe you wouldn't be getting enough sleep, but if you're sleeping too much, maybe you're not exercising.
For
It's
sure.
such a balance. And it's just, I think, in my opinion, all about moderation and managing stress. And, there's so many things that, we could get into, but, um, yeah, I'm very excited to, learn more and kind of dive deeper into the research and get into the meat and potatoes of everything, for lack of a better term.
Right. That sounds super interesting. And then I guess with that, I don't really have any other questions, but I don't know if you want to share like anything else or maybe one thing you want our listeners to take away from this podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, first of all, I just wanted to thank you for having me. This is a great pleasure of mine. Um, I always love to talk about health and optimizing performance and, our body. So thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Of course, thank you for being here.
Something, yeah, thank you. Something that, I think I would like to leave with the listeners is that, our bodies are so complex and incredibly different. Um, and so if you hear one piece of advice, don't take it, take it with a grain of salt. Don't take it as the end all be all. Especially as it relates to sleep and nutrition and exercise and, emotional health. There's so many things that would would work so well for one person, but really not move the marker at all for another. And I think that's just the complexity of our bodies, and I think that's how we were made as humans. And so I think finding out what works best for you is a great thing to kind of take away. Of course, there are some things that, work just about for everyone. Kind of like exercising, like, that
Right.
someone's like, I don't exercise because I don't think that it's good for us, then think that, that's like probably something that is like, well, let's get into that a little bit. But, we're that being said, we're highly individual. And, you know, another thing that I would say and leave with the listeners, would be, find people who are trusted sources who have studied this for their lives and have credentials, and, you know, aren't saying, take this one pill because it's going to change your sleep forever.
Right.
Um, find trusted sources that will really help you and help the people around you because, they care and not because that, they're making whole lot of money off their posts or something like that. Because I think with social media nowadays, it's really easy to get caught up in,
Right.
oh, this person said blah, 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 blah. And then you look at the research or you look at someone that's a little bit more unbiased and, that what that first person said is entirely untrue. And I think it's a bit sad that, that's where we've come to. But, um, that being said, yeah, just completely, know who your source is, do some research them. And yeah, just, get good sources before you know, change something about, your body because we only have one.
For sure. I love that message so much. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. I'm sure our listeners are just as grateful as I am to have you. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for tuning into the REM Reward Podcast. Before you go, we'd appreciate your support by subscribing, liking, and leaving your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned for our next podcast where we will be joined by a special guest speaker to explore even more about the fascinating world of sleep and psychology.